Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into something a lot of us have probably seen, or hey, maybe even felt ourselves, that emotional fortress. We're going to talk about the avoidant attachment style. You know, why some people just seem to be masters at keeping everyone at arm's length, even when deep down they really want to connect. So let me ask you this. Have you ever felt that, you're with someone and they're right there physically, but emotionally, it feels like they're a million miles away? It's like they let you hang around them, but they just can't seem to let you in. Well, there's actually a term for this in psychology. It's called the avoidant attachment style. And the really important thing to get here is that it's not a personality flaw. It's actually a learned behavior, almost like a survival strategy that starts way, way back in our earliest childhood relationships. And look, if any of this is starting to sound familiar, you are definitely not alone. One survey found that around 1 in every 5 adults in the US identifies with this style. I mean, think about that. That is a massive number of people who are dealing with this exact same challenge. Okay, so if this is something that's learned, the big question is, where does it come from? And to really get to the bottom of it, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning. We have to talk about childhood. So a lot of the time, this style takes root when a kid's caregivers are, well, emotionally distant. Just picture it. A small child reaches out for a hug or for comfort, and instead they're met with a bit of a cold shoulder, or maybe they're told to toughen up or stop crying. The lesson they learn, without even realizing it, is that showing your feelings or asking for help, it's useless, or worse, it's unsafe. And that experience right there, it creates this really powerful core belief that sticks with them for life. To be safe, I have to rely only on myself. Reaching out for help just leads to getting hurt or rejected. So what do? They learn to just push their own needs down and handle everything on their own. Now, this is so crucial to understand. This is almost never a conscious, malicious choice by parents. It's usually a cycle, right? It's an echo of how they were raised, and it just gets passed down from one generation to the next, completely unintentionally. So what happens when these kids grow up? Well, that deep-seated need for self-reliance doesn't just magically vanish. Instead, it creates this really profound and honestly super confusing internal battle when it comes to their adult relationships. And this is where you really see that conflict play out. It's like this tale of two different people living in one body. On the outside, you might see someone who's incredibly confident, totally self-sufficient, maybe even the lone wolf type who's really successful and social. But on the inside, there's this huge discomfort with getting too close to people and this deep, nagging fear of ever having to depend on somebody else. And that really is the heart of the matter, isn't it? It means the relationships often feel kind of stuck in the shallow end. They might have a ton of friends or a string of casual partners, but that really deep, vulnerable connection, to them, that feels genuinely threatening. You'll see this internal battle pop up in some really specific behaviors. Like maybe a relationship starts to get a little too serious, and all of a sudden they start nitpicking their partner, finding reasons to pull away. Or they'll just bury themselves in work or a hobby. It's not that they don't care, it's that a defense mechanism, one they've had their whole life, is just kicking into high gear. So, what do you think happens when this intense need for independence crashes into someone else's need for closeness? Well, it often creates this super common and really painful relationship dynamic. Some people call it the anxious-avoidant trap. This is exactly what it sounds like. You have one partner who is terrified of being abandoned, that's the anxious partner, and they end up with someone who is terrified of being suffocated, that's our avoidant partner. So when the anxious person tries to get closer for reassurance, it just feels like immense pressure to the avoidant person, which makes them pull away. And you can see how this becomes such a painful cycle, right? The more one person pushes for closeness, the more the other pulls away, which naturally makes the first person push even harder. It's this vicious cycle that just feeds itself, and it's all driven by two totally opposite core fears. Okay, after hearing all that, I'm sure there's a big question on your mind. Does this mean people with an avoidance style just can't feel love? That's a huge misconception, and we need to clear it up right now. The answer is yes, they absolutely feel love, just as deeply as anyone else. The capacity is 100% there. The struggle isn't in feeling it. The struggle isn't in showing it and accepting it. It's like their whole childhood taught them that being vulnerable and letting affection in is dangerous. Their attachment system kind of got turned down to low, but that basic human need for connection, oh, it's still there. All right, so just understanding this whole pattern is a massive first step. But here's the really good news. It doesn't have to be the last step. This is not a permanent state of being. And I want to be really clear about this. Change is absolutely possible. And that's probably the most powerful and hopeful message in all of the research on this topic. With a bit of self-awareness, some real effort, and the right kinds of tools, people can heal from these early wounds and learn a totally new, more secure way of connecting with others. This journey really starts with self-awareness. It's almost like learning to speak a new language, the language of your own feelings. So first, you have to turn inward and just ask, what am I actually feeling? Tune into those physical sensations and emotions that might have been buried for years. Then you ask, okay, what do I need? To understand those underlying needs. And finally, what should I do? Which is all about taking those first small, safe steps to actually express those needs. And there are some really practical ways to make this happen. Things like therapy, especially with someone who specializes in attachment, can be a game changer. It gives you a safe space to practice trust. Or, there are tools like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, that help you spot those old automatic thoughts, like I'm better off alone, and actively challenge them. But no matter which path you take, it's important to know this isn't a quick fix. It's more like building a new set of emotional muscles you've never used before. And that takes time, it takes patience, and a real commitment to just gently push in your comfort zone, one tiny, vulnerable step at a time. So let's leave you with this to think about. Because really, understanding your attachment style isn't just about digging up the past. It's about unlocking a totally different kind of future. So ask yourself, what could you build in your life if the thing you feared the most, vulnerability, actually became your greatest foundation?